Welcome to the April 6, 2020 virtual board meeting via Google Hangout and conference call. It is 6:33 and I would like to call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Drew Dixon, so moved.
Tracy Stewie, second.
We have a motion and a second. We need to do a roll call vote, and so that'll be a good time for me to introduce the board members on this call. So, John Carlson.
Aye. John Carlson says aye.
Tim Lokensgaard.
Tim Lokensgaard, aye.
Tracy Stewie.
Tracy Stewie, aye.
Bill Soderlund.
Aye.
And Drew Dixon.
Drew Dixon, aye.
And Ben Leonard, aye. Motion carries. So with that, we have two action items. The first, consider approval of paying spring coaches, directors, and advisors for a modified work schedule. Dr. Olson?
Yeah, I'll start giving you some general information, and then I'll let Annette fill in as well. What we're requesting is that we continue to honor the contracts of our spring coaches, directors, and advisors, and allow those individuals to carry out a number of duties that are allowed by the State High School League. Now, of course, some of the activities that we have are not High School League directed, but our recommendation is to follow the same guidelines as the High School League is giving coaches and advisors and directors of State High School League activities. So specifically, to connect with participants on a regular basis via technology. Secondly, to provide optional individual workouts, individual skills training, or individual activities via electronic communication. And thirdly, to connect with and support participants who are challenged by changes in their routines in life due to the restrictions that we're under. We would ask all of those coaches, directors, and advisors who want to continue to receive payment and act under this particular system that we're asking you to approve, that they would keep a regular weekly log of their activities. And that's not a log that would be, extensive, but that would indicate that they're carrying out the activities that we're asking them. So Annette, what would you like to add?
No, I think you did a nice job summarizing it, but Jordan is obviously managing this with all of his spring directors and coaches and advisors, and he also has some other professional development opportunities for them if they're interested during this time, but we'll be managing those work logs. And like Dr. Olson said, those aren't expected to, account minute by minute, but be more of a general, what they've done week by week with their students. We also just, when we were talking about this and just weighing in with our opinion on it, we just really strongly believe that sometimes it's a coach or a director in a kid's life that keeps them showing up or keeps them logging in these days. And so we thought that it was really important to support those people in their work with our kids as well.
So we would stand for any questions or comments that you might have.
John Carlson, is there a minimum expectation? I mean, can I still get paid if I just choose not to do anything?
No. We would have an expectation that that you're connecting or you have activity that you document on a weekly basis. And again, it wouldn't have to be extensive. I want to reiterate Annette's point in that we really strongly believe that the more we can connect with students from caring adults and caring individuals, whether they're the teachers or advisors or other adults in school or coaches, the better chance we have of keeping those individuals engaged in school for whatever kind of format we're going to have for the remainder of the school year.
This is John Carlson again. So just to follow up, I 100% agree with what you said, but Jordan is going to come up with some sort of minimum that is expectation, because I do think their communication is important. I just could see that slipping through the cracks as easily as students slipping through the cracks in a class or whatever.
Yeah, and we have, John, a number of different work logs that we're using for our other workers who stay at home. They're turning those into their direct supervisors on a weekly basis, and they seem to be working well. So, that would be our expectation here in addition, or the same expectation we would have that there's regular interaction and communication on a weekly basis. And I think if Jordan and or Annette feel like that something's slipping, that they would intervene and have conversations with those folks if necessary.
This is Ben Leonard. I think, to me, this fits really well with our expectations of all staff and the governor's directive, which was to keep people employed, because there's still a lot of work to do, and that work looks different. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a food service worker, whether you're a custodian, whether you're a coach. And I know other districts are making different decisions about paying their coaches, but I really like the approach that you've taken in that there is that extra work that coaches do provide during the season, but that's still valid in connecting with kids and making sure that their mental health is where it needs to be, and that they're feeling connected in a time where it's really easy to slip through the cracks or really easy to feel disconnected. So I really like this plan. And John, I hear what you're saying about doing work, and we want to make sure that there's accountability at all levels, no matter what your position is at the district. But I like what I'm hearing, which is, this is just a strange time, and we have expectations, and we have excellent staff, and I think we can trust that that most are going to go above and beyond, and I think we can also be flexible to realize that things are going to look different, and there's a lot of variability in this. So
I can also add that most had already made connections with kids before they had any idea of what a decision was going to be on their payment. Our athletic coaches were still going to communicate with kids and get them some virtual workouts. I can speak to our theater directors. They were already meeting with kids online and making sure they were doing okay. So those people, those are the events. While they miss me a lot, those kids and their classes. If you listen to the chatter of our students, it's really their co-curricular events and those activities that they're connected to that they're missing the most.
thank you. Can I ask a related question about getting student fees for activities back refunded to parents, or how we're handling that?
We're not making any decision or statement about that yet until we know what's going on moving forward with our spring activities.
Yeah, at the present time, the State High School League has suspended activities through May 5th. So there's still an opportunity that there could be a season, but we also will be prepared to bring back information to you about refunds. I think it would be our recommendation at this point in time that if the entire season is canceled, that certainly the activity fees would be refunded to families.
Thank you.
This is John Carlson. I would also consider using a credit form instead of giving a refund to some of the underclassmen, to offer credit towards the fall or winter, or honestly, if the only thing they do is in the spring, they can use that fee for that.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and maybe extending that refund to other members of the family as well. So you could just transfer it if one kid is graduating but another one's coming up, just move it over.
Sure.
This is Tracy Stewie. Just want to know, I think that's a great idea to offer that, but if there's a family that really wants that money back, I really feel like we should honor that just because people are in different situations. So, but again, that's just my opinion, but I think the credit is good. I just think that, we don't want people thinking we're holding on to their money also.
Yeah, I could see it being an optional decision on the part of families.
That was my intention when I brought it up.
Perfect.
Thank you. Well, is there a motion to approve paying spring coaches, directors, and advisors for their modified work schedule?
This is John Carlson, so moved.
I'll second. Lokenskart, second. Sorry.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion and a second. We'll go roll call vote again. John?
John Carlson, aye.
Tim?
Tim Lokenskart, aye.
Tracy?
Tracy Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
Drew?
Drew Dixon, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Second action item,
Thank you.
thank you. Consider allowing superintendent of schools with approval of school board chair the authority to modify work schedules and or pay scales to meet requirements of the governor's executive order regarding COVID-19. Dr. Olson?
Yep, we one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is as things continue to progress, and in some cases as some of our staff members are experiencing the need to have different kinds of work schedules due to maybe somebody in their family having an underlying condition or an illness in some member of their family or their own illness, that we may need to look at providing some ways to incentivize the kinds of work that are going to involve more direct, although not specifically direct, but more direct contact with members of the public. Those situations would occur in likely two places. One, our Saints Care, which is our child care that we're operating for the students of and children of emergency care and critical care providers. And then secondly, in our meal distribution, either our distribution of meals that is occurring curbside or the distribution of meals that is occurring at this point, via our bus routes. So while we don't have a specific a plan at this point, we think it's important to have flexibility. And the fact of the matter is that flexibility may need to occur in a matter of a day or even less in some cases in time. So what we're requesting is that opportunity to enter into discussions with the appropriate labor unions and the appropriate contracts if there's a need to modify work schedules or modify pay scales. There has been a lot of discussion with the superintendents that I regularly communicate with about this item, and I think it would provide us that opportunity to be really flexible and adaptable in a quick manner. And again, it would have the approval of the board chair and be brought back to a regular school board meeting. But again, with meeting every 2 weeks or trying to get a special meeting that might require 3 days notice or whatever the case might be, we think this would give us that opportunity again to be nimble as conditions change. And we're seeing that happen on a fairly regular basis now. I can sense in some cases greater stress on the part of some of our staff members, and we need to be cognizant of that and think about how we deal with that.
Dr. Olson, just to chime in, I think that I'm grateful for you, and John, thank you for having this idea as well and bringing it forth to the agenda. I think it's a good idea. I think that this fits really well with how we normally do business. The school board signs off on all employment decisions, but we usually do so as part of a consent agenda after these employees have been selected and started. And so we would come back to the full board with these kind of decisions, but we just want to do it. We want to be able to make the decisions first and be more nimble. Second, this also fits within the financial parameters that the board voted on a couple of weeks ago, correct? When we allocated a certain amount of funds. This isn't above and beyond that. It's financially at least included in that.
It would fit, I'm confident it would fit within the parameters of the funds you've authorized to have us deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, correct?
This is Bill Soderlund. Dr. Olson, would you just give me a hypothetical example or illustration of what you're referring to on this?
A hypothetical example might be, I'll give you two. One with a modified work schedule. We might indicate to people who are normally working, let's say 6.5 or 6 3/4 or 7 hours a day, that we're going to ask you to work maybe 4.5 hours a day and receive your same pay that you would have received if you worked 6.5 hours a day, because you're maybe in a little bit more of a stressful environment. Another hypothetical would be, we might say we're going to increase your pay when you're working in these more stressful situations by, let's say, X dollars per hour, whatever that figure might be. And again, it's a recognition that some of our staff members are in more direct contact with the public than others are, who maybe are able to more easily work remotely, as an example.
This is John Carlson. One of the questions I've heard, or at least have been following through the administrative meetings that you guys have had, is there talk about extending the hours of Saints Care and maybe having possibly a couple of different shifts in order to accommodate essential personnel as it's defined, emergency personnel, whatever it is?
Exactly. Yeah, we're actually working at plans right now, but again, to ask some people to change maybe their normal work schedules, where they typically might be done at, let's say, 2 o'clock or 2:30 or 3 o'clock during the day. If we need to extend that to 5 or 5:30, or we'd like to extend it to 5 or 5:30, this option that we're recommending would give us some flexibility in addressing that by perhaps offering a little better pay rate or a better work schedule, or a shortened work schedule at the same pay. Again, trying to be creative, but also meet those directions or directives that the governor's executive order have given us to provide that child care and to provide meals to students. So that's a good example, John, and I think this could help us in trying to extend those hours.
Yeah, this is Ben Leonard. That's a great point. And part of this, and part of the governor's directive, I think, is to keep staff as whole as possible. So, in that scenario you bring up, John, if we go to a 9-hour day, people can't work 9-hour days. That's above and beyond what we've asked those staff people to do. But then cutting their hours to 4.5 means they get a pay cut. So that's not really what we're looking to do either. We might need 9 hours worth of childcare. So having this and having the district be able to say, look, we're going to keep you whole, but we are going to extend the hours, and here's how we're going to do it to accommodate those extra people, I think is really great. Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved. This is John Carlson. So moved.
Drew Dixon, second.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote again. Drew?
Drew Dixon, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
Tracy?
Tracy Stewie, aye.
Tim?
Tim Lokensgaard, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That takes us through our action items and into our information items. So briefing and a Q&A on distance learning so far.
I'm just going to cover some of the pluses that we're seeing and some of the areas that we are still continuing to work at, and then certainly open it up to questions or comments from any of you. So just on the plus side, just last week we completed our K-8 conferences. The reports from principals are that they went very well with good feedback from parents. We're connecting with almost all kids and families on a daily basis. I see our staff are working incredibly hard. I think their spirits are high. They seem positive. We do continue to follow the directions of the governor in that he has not ordered any playgrounds closed. However, we have put signs on all of our playgrounds and in all of our open fields that if you choose to use our playgrounds, fields, and areas, that you agree to follow the governor's social distance guidelines. Our technology department has distributed over 1,800 devices, and that was with the assistance of Activities Director Jordan Paula. That's pretty incredible. So almost all students now have devices in their hands and access to internet. We have a few students that still do not have access to internet, and we're looking for those hotspots that we purchased. We've also extended internet into our number of our parking lots as another way to have families, although not in the most ideal sense, but to get internet access. We have posted free activities on our community education webpage for adults in the community. That's sometimes one that we forget about. People are, with the stay-at-home order, are looking for things to do, and Tammy Skinner and staff have done a really good job of posting a number of things there. And really excited about the fact that our food service and our staff and administration have figured out a way to send out free meal packs on Wednesday of this week via our normal distribution means to cover 8 days. So those meal packs will cover Wednesday the 8th of April through Wednesday the 15th of April. And we were concerned about that, about what would happen with meals over spring break, and I think they've come up with a remarkable plan. Now, the only thing is they're not going to be able to send their kindergarten student out to the bus stop or to pick up the meal pack because it's going to be too big for them to carry back. So we got to figure that one out, but that's pretty exciting. I think we're continuing to communicate in multiple ways. If you haven't seen it yet, you might want to click on the school website for the first issue of the Saints Scribe. The Saints Scribe is a weekly newsletter that Kurt Hildebrand will be publishing with lots of information about things that we're doing, about special interest stories, just kind of quick shots, all designed to keep our students and our families connected to the school to the extent possible. One of those things that's in today's issue is we will be participating in hashtag Be the Light Minnesota, which is at 8 o'clock tonight. Our lights on the athletic field at Floyd B. Johnson Field will go on for 20 minutes and 20 seconds in honor of the class of 2020. And we'll try to do that every Monday night to help show our support to our students and their families. But there are other things in there as well. Just a bit of information that I'm pretty amazed at and proud of our staff and everybody involved. Through April 3rd, we have served 21,729 meals. 21,729 meals. So that's pretty amazing. So those are some of the pluses. There are others as well, but I think those are some things just to note. Some of the things that we're continuing to work at, we have some students who are not participating in distance learning. That number is very small, but we are in the process of identifying the students who we are labeling as they've gone dark and that we haven't connected with them. What we plan to do is ask our school resource officers to visit those homes to find out, is there a reason? Is there something we can do? In some cases, have families decided to leave the district and perhaps go to other locations to be with family? We're not really sure. We're still working with some of the glitches with having 2,200 devices to maintain remotely. Chris Oberbo and his staff are doing a great job, but with that many devices out, things happen. Something doesn't work, a system doesn't recharge its battery, or whatever the case might be. We're also working to figure out how we schedule non-public special education students into our system. We're required to maintain our special education service for non-public students who receive special education. We're also continuing to fine-tune how we take attendance, because obviously attendance is required, and how you do that in this distance learning world is a little challenging. We also see that our teachers' workloads are increasing. It's not a matter of simply picking up the folder from what you did last year or the semester before, and making a few tweaks and delivering the lesson. It's creating lessons, responding to kids and families multiple times throughout the day, because not everybody can ask a question at the same exact time. So that's something that we're cognizant of and watching. We also, and Annette can maybe talk about this, have experienced some situations where some of our high school kids are working during the day. They've taken day jobs. That doesn't work really well with school. And we're trying to ascertain, is that something that an employer has requested, or is it something that could be caused by a family financial hardship? And Annette, you want to chime in on that one? Have we seen things like that? I know you've been in close contact with our guidance and counseling and service social workers and so forth.
Yeah, it's you guys getting some feedback?
No, we're good.
It's kind of an interesting situation because we can't really get a handle on the kids, whether it's a financial situation for their family, that since they have a job, they need to get those hours in, which is very feasible right now. What we're gathering, that it is nursing homes and grocery stores. And so Dr. Olson and I have talked about it. We don't even know if that's legal necessarily for those employers to be bringing kids in during the school day, which is still considered the school day or not. Right now, our teachers are being really flexible with it, because if they are scheduling asynchronous learning time like this, they're recording it, and then the kids can access that then after their work schedule. But it's just one that we hadn't predicted that issue. So just trying to get to the bottom of what to do about that right now.
Could we get an answer from the Department of Education or from someone else about whether it is legal, and if it isn't legal, maybe getting a message out through the chamber or to those employers specifically? Because it seems like a two-pronged approach. One, you want to get the kid to not work, but the more likely scenario might be calling the grocery store and saying, you can't schedule kids during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is interesting there is, if we know that distance learning, especially when it's the asynchronous learning, the stuff that doesn't require immediate interaction with people in a setting like this or something like that, that can certainly occur at different times. But I don't think it works the way that we want it to work and need it to work in terms of assessments and interaction and real-time learning if we start to allow lots of different options and things to occur. There needs to be some regularity to school.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll work our way through that. It might be, we certainly can connect with MDE. It might be a Department of Labor question. I'm not really sure, but that's one that it's on our agenda tomorrow for sure.
We do have, both the middle school and the high school have distance learning schedules. I'm sure you read through that packet from the high school really closely. But it's a virtual learning schedule just to help kids avoid being expected to be in more than one place at a time. You know, if Dave Kennedy wants to meet with them for pre-calc and Peggy Dimmick needs to meet with them for English, they have their assigned times for that. Not that they're necessarily doing that every single day, but you know, they are expected to be there at those times that they are doing a hangout.
I haven't had a chance to read it, obviously, but I dropped the Minnesota Department of Labor laws regarding when kids can work in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
The link, and I don't see why those would be different or suspended during this time of distance learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's one we're working on. And the last thing I would just want to mention, or two things. Another challenge that we're trying to work our way through is how to do birth to K assessments. And we do assessments with our early childhood special education folks, but they really do require, to the extent possible, you know, that face-to-face interaction. So that's a little challenging for us. And then at this point, our summer community education brochure is on hold, and we're starting to discuss how we might be thinking about other summer activities. So for an example, if the situation continues where we don't have traditional school, what does that mean for summer school credit recovery for high school students? What does that mean for our targeted services where we're providing interventions in core areas like reading and mathematics? What does it mean for something like our originally scheduled Hall of Fame induction ceremony set for July 3rd? So those things are on our mind as well, and we're trying to track those and think about those. The other piece I would say, and Annette can chime in on this one as well, we're trying to identify those big rocks in terms of activities and how we carry those out. So you've got National Honor Society induction, you've got Senior Awards Night, you've got Decision Day, where seniors are indicating what their choices are after they graduate. You've got graduation, you've got kindergarten roundup, you've got the spring Pops concert, you've got second grade transition, fifth grade transition, ninth grade transition activities to think about. So now those are, you know, regular big things that we would normally be dealing with right now, and we still will. We just have to figure out options should they become necessary. So questions from anybody on anything related to our distance learning and things that we've talked about?
This is Tracy Stewie. I have a couple different questions. I would like to know or add a comment about special education services and how those are being delivered during distance learning. What are the expectations from case managers? That would be a question I would have. And the other thing is I feel like it would be nice if our student services can somehow do like a more of a group like mental health check-in or activity or information for our students. I don't know, the first week seemed to be like everybody was like, oh, this is kind of like, you know, whatever, but now today it's like not so much. And I don't think it's just our family either, and so I don't know if there's a way for us to plug any of that in.
Yeah, you know, Tracy, in response, I'll start with the second question. One of the things we'll be doing tomorrow afternoon is participating with the superintendents around the state in a conference call centered on how we deal with mental, emotional, social issues for students, and not only for students, but for staff members as well. So I think we'll get some guidance and some ideas there. The special education services case managers have a number of different ways that they've been aided by John Lustig, our special education director, and others in that realm to carry out those services. But I couldn't probably give you any tremendous specifics right now. Annette, can you add anything into that?
Yeah, other than obviously our special education kids in particular we worry about over these times, along with EL students, because there is no direct service. I can also comment on the student services that, once distance learning is sort of a little bit more established, that their plan is to continue with the same social emotional groups that they've always had. They're having an extremely hard time connecting with kids who probably need it most. So that's a concern.
And then my last bit I would add would be kind of thinking about all those things that Dr. Olson was talking about with the spring and things that normally are done, including like forming classes and all of that. And I honestly don't know if you could have a teacher right now sit down after their day at the computer and even work on those things. So I don't know if we're going to have to look into paying for some days during the summer when the staff can do those things. I don't know, but I do know in asking some of my kids as teachers, I mean, they're getting like probably over 100 emails a day, and that's just the emails. And then they have their Hangouts, then they have, and it's a lot, and everybody knows that, but I don't know when they would have any time to be doing any of those other things, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's certainly one that we're keeping an eye on. We met today and talked about things like curriculum studies and are there some things there that we can move to the summer months and not deal with things during the school year? We've had some really pretty strong, good staff development activities that occur right after the end of the school year, and we put those on hold, just thinking that people are going to need time to take a deep breath and
yes,
recharge batteries and all of those things. So that's a good point, Tracy.
Yeah, and I know the teachers are just trying hard, you know what I mean? And they're kind of doing tech support and and then also trying to teach their classes. But I do admire their creativity and ways that they have been, interacting with the kids too. So that's been a lot of fun to hear. So
I think it goes a long way that it was just decided to continue to pay our spring advisors because, our class, the senior class officers or advisors will still continue to get paid along with student council and NHS, so they'll keep plugging away.
Mm-hmm. That's all I have today.
This is John Carlson. Do you have any sort of numbers type things on attendance, whether it be a percentage or even a guesstimate of how attendance is? I mean, how big? Because I anticipated this to be kind of a big thing, and I just was curious how big a thing it actually is.
Annette, correct me, but the reports that we had late last week, I think at our Friday check-in meeting, were pretty positive. Pretty strong attendance, probably in that 90+% range. But again, we are concerned about those kids who we have not connected with, or who may find it more difficult as time goes on to continue staying connected in distance learning. And that's one of those points that Annette was just talking about with continuing with our social, emotional, and mental health supports. You want to add anything there, Annette?
Yeah, the attendance piece is really frustrating right now. From an office standpoint, we've really kind of been given no direction from MDE yet on whether or not that has to happen at the high school, middle school, and high school level. It happens every period. And so trying to figure out a way to manage that with every single kid in every single class has been tricky. So an example of tracking that at the high school is that there's teachers have to take attendance every single period with a Google form or something saying that they've connected, and then Brian Odland is going back and checking that again. So every kid who's missed at least 10 10 class periods in the week is being contacted by the office to make sure that they have access and all that kind of stuff, and then rolling it back into our official attendance system has been tricky, especially at the middle and high school with so many check-ins throughout the day.
Well, to hear that 90% plus, I think is better than I anticipated it would be. So that's a credit to the planning and the teachers. Is anybody opting to use paper copies instead of technology? Is that an option or not an option that we're allowing, being that we're in the 21st century? I mean, I don't know.
It's only an option for those students who are having either difficulty with technological access or don't have technological access, but those numbers are actually pretty small right now. And we are delivering packets via our school vans. We thought we maybe would need to deliver packets on buses or some other thing, but we're able to use school vans to get out to the homes, and there's a 24-hour rule in terms of when you drop something off and they pick it up, and then when they drop it off, we pick it up, which has proved a little bit challenging, but that would be the extent of our packet use.
And then one last question, if I can. Is there a required amount of synchronous learning for each of the classes? Could somebody be going completely asynchronous, or what are the requirements there?
The specific requirements are found in each of those distance learning plans, but there's an expectation that there are multiple synchronous learning connections during any given week. And that you can talk about that more in terms of the high school as an example.
Yeah, it varies from building to building. And while I didn't at the high school choose to pick a set number of times or minutes that teachers chose to do that, the spoken expectation is that it's twice a week. And at least once. And moving forward, we're in all of week 2 of this. But what I'm hearing from families and students is that they really, they are very appreciative of that synchronous time with teachers. And so would probably look forward to more of that as we move forward. Again, we don't want to, that can be a lot of, that can be confusing and hard to manage for specifically EL students, trying to manage a schedule and figure out which times they're supposed to log in and keep track of all of that. But we're hearing really good things about those times, and that teachers do reach out synchronously to their kids.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and then I'll step back. But I think that's the one thing that I think students are realizing they miss the most is just the interaction with their teacher, with fellow students. Just being synchronous together online is the next best thing to what they really enjoyed about school, is actually being in a classroom with fellow students. So
yeah, we would agree. We hear that from our parents and students on a regular basis. That's another great reason for that. And thank you for the support of the spring coaches, directors, and advisors. That's another way to get the theater group to pull together and just chit-chat about all things theater, or the baseball team, or whatever it might be, the FFA club, etc.
When teachers are just practicing making connections with their classes, one kind of fun, I don't know, questionable, the teacher would log out and they'd log in, an hour later, and the kids were still on the Hangout chatting and visiting. So that could be both good and bad, I suppose.
Yeah, and one of the things we're learning a lot, and I'm learning a lot from other superintendents. We do a regular weekly chat with the superintendents in the Big South Conference, but as you might guess, there's a need now to have a dress code for our synchronous learning chats. etc. So, and that's pretty much from our upper middle school and high school that we're seeing that. Maybe not surprising.
Hey, this is Tracy Stewie. Do we have a 3D printer at the high school?
Mm-hmm. And
we
middle
have
school.
3D printers, yes.
Okay. So have
I
you
think
guys
it's
been,
elementary
there's
school.
been some different schools that have been like using that to make like face shields and things for clinics for like personal protective equipment. I saw that kind of coming out today. I don't know if that's, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And Annette, I don't know, I would guess that Mr. Reeser and others probably Mr. Peterson are thinking about those things as they're moving forward here.
You just blew my mind, Tracy.
I do.
I can't imagine.
Okay, I'm sorry. Pretend.
No, that's a great idea.
Great. Thank you for that. Moving on to the revised budget plan.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, you know, the budget timeline for our capital projects and for our special projects, the special projects would be the Floyd B. Johnson Field enhancements and the Community Spirit Park enhancements. Those are moving along on our original schedule. We've needed to make some modifications, some slight adjustments to our stabilization of the general fund action plan. And that primarily is in the item number 7, where we're looking at some other options for our budget plan, and we'll explain those in between Mr. Regner and myself as we get into the 4-year rollout. It's also our plan to continue with our Finance Committee meetings scheduled for the 17th of April, where we can dig into this in more detail. But we wanted to tonight just note that for you. And then as we get into the explanation of the 4-year rollout, to provide a different option for you to consider. And we're not asking for a decision by any means tonight. We're just laying this out as an information item. So really in the timeline, it's moving those the idea of considering options in the budget plan into April, considering a final draft of the budget plan in an adoption of the budget plan in that May-June period, and then implementing that budget plan beginning in June and carrying that through the 2020-2021 school year. So any questions on that piece? It really is setting us up to move into the options for the stabilization of the general fund.
I think go forward.
Yeah, that puts us into agenda item number 3. So Tim Regner and myself, we've worked at developing an option for our budget rollout. It does a couple of things. It delays holding an operating levy referendum until November of 2021. And we can talk more about that in just a minute. We want to show you what the potential of the impact would look like, but also show you then what we would recommend in terms of more specific budget adjustments and some of the other things that we can anticipate as we move forward with our budget over the next 4 years. So what we did on page 14 of your packet, your board packet, is laid out kind of the big items. And so, you know, if you were to add those items together, you're saying, well, that doesn't add up. But these are just kind of the big picture pieces. So I want to start with fiscal year 20. Tim, you can certainly add in anything that I miss or respond to questions that board members might have.
Okay.
As we talk about fiscal year 20, we already know that there's a legislative increase of 2%. Our enrollment, we're anticipating to stay on that increase of about 20 students. We've had a decrease in our compensatory revenue for this year. That's based on last year's free and reduced price lunch numbers. And we're transferring from our assigned operational $417,500. The expenditure increase is based on our contracted settlements, new hire replacements based on decisions made, many of them a year ago, in terms of hiring and moving to a more comprehensive middle school schedule, and then some things with a budget tracker increase. So where we see ourselves on June 30th of 2020 is with a $4,700,925 fund balance, which accounts for 64 days and puts us in line with your 60-day fund balance goal. As we move into fiscal year 21, which is this coming year, we still have the legislative increase on the books of 2%. We see enrollment potentially decreasing by 20 students, which drops us $131,320 in revenue. We still are indicating that we'll see a revenue increase from the Hoffman Learning Center as they increase students. We already know that we'll have an increase in compensatory revenue based on our free and reduced lunch applications of this year. We continue with the assigned operational of $417,500. And just as a reminder, you had assigned $1,600,000 or slightly over that for assigned operational expenses, and that's what's being put in play there. There's an expenditure increase of $891,367 that are contracted settlements primarily. We have some expenditure increases at the Area Learning Center, the Hoffman Learning Center, the district office and leadership of $330,810. And then we would be recommending a budget adjustment reduction of $400,000 for next year. We have started to develop specifics in that, and they involve a variety of different things, and we would be prepared to lay those out in detail at our meeting on August 17th. That would provide us with a fund balance on June 30th of 2021 of $4,573,931 or 61 days, which continues to meet your 60-day fund balance goal. As we move into fiscal year 22, which would be the 2021-2022 school year, you'll see that we have now changed and are projecting a legislative increase of 0%. I think with things happening in the economy the way they are, we should not be expecting an increase in money from the legislature. We're still looking at a potential enrollment decrease, although I do want to tell you that one of the things that we're seeing that's kind of interesting is we're seeing an uptick in enrollment right now. Probably 8 to 10 students in the last 2 weeks. And they're folks who are coming to our school system because I think they are hearing good things about how we're prepared to deal with a distance learning environment. In some cases, there are students who are moving in with relatives and et cetera. So that's kind of an interesting piece. You'll also see then again, continuing with the transfer of assigned operational. And then one of the things that you'll see indicated there is an expenditure increase of $500,000. Now that's a significant variance from where we've been in the past several years. And then an additional budget adjustment of $400,000. That would give us a fund balance on June 30th of 2022 of $4,315,617 or 58 days. We move into fiscal year 23, and again, as you are aware, the further we get out in 2022, 2023, the more difficult it is to be accurate in our projections. But we're again looking at a legislative increase of 0%, a reduction in discretionary levy. You have some discretionary levies that you can look at moving around a bit. An enrollment decrease of 10 students. And here you see the operating referendum increase of $311.90 per pupil unit, which would mean that you'd need to successfully pass an operating referendum in the fall of 21, increasing the current $182.90 to $495, I believe the number is. That would generate an increase in revenue of $771,516. You continue with that transfer of assigned operational, and you end up with a fund balance on June 30th of 2023 of $4,006,849 or 53 days. So that's kind of a big picture idea, but what it really does is that the big changes are pushing off the operating referendum till the fall of 21, thinking that, as we come out of this this pandemic situation and businesses have been closed and people have been laid off, it probably is not an ideal time in any way, shape, or form to be thinking about an operating referendum campaign for this fall. So we're looking at that a year later. Also looking at the legislative increase of 0% and holding our expenditure increases to that $500,000 level. So those would be the big picture items. Tim, anything you want to add to that right off the top?
Just a little bit, it's obviously a different world than we were a month ago economically. There are some things that are in the governor's his orders that do affect school finance that we're waiting for some additional guidance from MDE as far as fund transfers and using funds for different type things. Not so much new money as just being able to use it, not so much mandated where. You'll probably see some of that coming down the pike in the next couple months as we get some more guidance on that. But that's kind of a couple things there, and just a lot of stuff changing, a lot of moving parts.
Dr. Olson,
Yes, sir.
this is a very minor thing, but looking at the increase next year in our compensatory aid that we're expecting, I can't imagine having to go through what we're going through right now without the help of our liaisons. They've just done an amazing job, and it's I thought they were important a few months ago and last year, but I think this proves how indispensable they are. But then you layer on the fact that revenue is coming into the district or anticipated to come in because of their work. And that's not the most important work that they're doing, but I just wanted to point that out. And, another position that we've chosen to add in the last few years is the school information officer. And there's not income coming back for that, but I think that just frees administrators up to doing the things that we want administrators to be doing, and that communication is really critical right now.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And I also want to add a little good piece of information on the budget front. We submitted our revised A&I budget, Achievement and Integration budget, a week ago, and it was turned around and approved today. So feel really good about that. Eve and Tim and others did put a lot of work into that. And so, that's keeping our funding in place for those kinds of positions like you mentioned, Ben, with our school liaison officers, et cetera.
John, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, turn my mic on. Hey, Dr. Olson, what's a day again financially? How much does the day cost?
About $74,500.
So if we don't pass the referendum in fall of 21, that would be a reduction of an additional 10 days, roughly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right off the bat, and then that snowballs into doubling the next year. So
Right.
pretty crucial.
Yes, I agree.
I think this decision is a wise one. I think that this also, even though it won't get reported this way or we won't really, this is the school district really trusting our community. Ideally, we'd go out, in November so that we could go out a year early because that's a safer thing to do. I agree the economy is not going to be in any shape in November, that this isn't something that we want to ask our community to deal with the litany of other things that they're going to be dealing with for the rest of this year. But I do have a lot of faith in this community and the amount that they value education, and I feel good about this because of that. And I think moving to November 2021 is the right move, and I think we'll be able to pass it then.
So again, we'll provide more specific details and information on a number of these things on April 17th. We'll be looking to bring this back at our special board meeting in May, which is originally scheduled as a study session, but in your last meeting you authorized those to be special board meetings, and then likely ask for approval of our budget plan to give some clear direction to administration and staff moving forward at the May 16th board meeting. So you'll have lots of time to still weigh in via finance committee meetings and other board meetings.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. Mark, are you excited to tell us about update on the major summer buildings and grounds projects?
I always am. As you can see on page, I think it's 17, plans are coming together. I added a status column there so you can see where we're at and start times for the projects that we've been putting together since last fall. The only one that, well, there's two out there that are still in development, and that is the middle school media center remodel. We're working with ISG in the SD stage and getting information to get that budget to where we want it to be. That's one that we're really dependent on what contractors are looking for. It could turn out that they're looking for work and it really takes off. Could be that they're pretty busy and the price could go up a little bit. So we really don't know how to read what's going to come with what's going on out there right now. The other projects for the middle school, the light replacement and the ceiling replacement, those are all signed, ready to go. They'll start on June 1st. The greenhouse, the new roof for the greenhouse in the middle school, that's all signed and ready to roll. So two of those three items are ready for summer. Floyd B. Johnson, we sent out RFPs for the jump pit relocation, taking that from inside the track and moving it to the north side of the stadium. So we're waiting for that. We have a meeting this week with a couple of contractors to go through it, and I think those are due a week from Thursday. So we'll know where we're at with that. Scoreboard replacement, we just have to decide which exact model we want to go with, but we've got pricing on it, just finalizing it and getting that signed. And then we're waiting to see if there's funds available yet for that last item. If it works out, it'd be nice to have a place for teams to go when it's miserable outside, but that's just depends on how much budget we have left. It may not happen. And then we've been meeting with the city. We had a good meeting last week with the CSP restrooms. Gave them go ahead with the design they've come up with. They came in under what we were looking at. We'll see again though how contractors are. If they're busy, pricing will be up. If they're looking for work, we should get a good price on it, and we'll know more on that probably by next month's meeting.
I just want to mention that sometimes, we end up talking about general fund issues and budget reductions and adjustments and the like, and then we turn around and start talking about projects. It's important to note that the funding sources can't be commingled. So we can't take money from our bond funds, which we have remaining for the use on community spirit park enhancements, and do anything with those funds other than high school construction kinds of projects. Or we start talking about the Floyd B. Johnson renovations, you'll recall that funding comes from our remaining capital projects funds, which have to be dedicated to just that, capital projects, like the jump pit relocation. And then many of our other projects are based on our long-term facilities maintenance revenue, and those are, again, restricted in terms of the kinds of things we can do with those funds. So if you ever get a question like that, I think it's important to note that those funds have to be used in a specific way that they're identified.
Well, Dr. Olson, just to add, this agenda item is great at a time like this because it reminds us that, eventually we will get back to normal. And so a lot of what you're doing and administrators are doing right now is trying to make things right for the next 2 months. But we will get over this, and we do still need to think about the budget rollout 3 years from now and the state of our facilities going forward. So, Mark, I would say that in my line of work, we're still going ahead with projects and still getting contractors. Some of them, depending on what they're doing, are running into supply chain issues, if they're looking for products that are normally manufactured overseas. This has kind of thrown a wrench into that. So we may end up with some extended timelines just for that, and you know more about it than I do, but that's something that's come up in my day job that I've noticed.
Yeah, talking with Justin Steppel at ISG today, that they're running into the same thing is, they need to maintain their distancing while they're trying to do projects, which is slowing down the progress on a lot of projects. So that's going to have an impact on when we can start and probably completion of them.
Thank you. Any other questions, conversation, discussion on those?
I want to tell you that I very much support or appreciate the support that you as school board members have given to all of us during this time, particularly with doing business in some ways in a much different manner, with emergency meetings and special meetings and requests that haven't necessarily been vetted the same manner that we normally would do those kinds of things just because of the timing. So thank you for your support in helping us move forward with the kinds of things that we're doing. It's appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. So that brings us to upcoming meetings. Finance Committee, as mentioned, 7:30 a.m. Friday, April 17th, via a very similar link. The next regular board meeting will be Monday, April 20th. Normally a study session, but that has become a regular meeting, and that's at 6:30 via a similar link. And I assume, well, we did say until further notice that our meetings would be through teleconference. I really anticipate that going throughout May and maybe past that too. I don't know, Dr. Olson, if you have any thoughts, but
I would think we would be thinking at this point of our May 4th study session being a special board meeting via teleconference, and our May 16th regular board meeting being a being a meeting via teleconference as well.
Thank you. Any last comments, questions?
Just if you can see the lights on the athletic field, 20 minutes and 20 seconds starting at 8 o'clock, right, Mark?
8:20, I believe, right?
8:20.
Oh, 8:20. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is
And then it's for 20 minutes,
military
20
time.
seconds. Oh, military time. Okay.
2020 military time. Mhm.
All right.
I know the House of Representatives is taking up a bill tomorrow for supplementing school districts with hourly employees. So we'll see how that goes. Just from the legislative side.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that Tim Regner mentioned is, we've been told that there are going to be flow-through monies coming to us via some of the federal stimulus, but we don't know what that's going to look like, what areas that will be in, and that obviously changes pictures as well. We've had some experience with that with the recession in 2009, 2010, where money came in, and it's not just an open book. I mean, there likely would be in the area of either special education support services or title services or something of that nature. But that still remains to be seen. So we don't have any clear direction on that at this point.
Great, thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Tracy Stewie.
Drew
Thank
Dixon,
you.
second.
Thank you. John?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Bill?
Hi.
Drew?
Aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. The meeting is adjourned.